Hi everyone. Today we are going to discuss about JWT authentication integration in VueJS3 application. So JWT is a JSON web token where we are going to implement user authentication with token-based authentication. So let's jump into create a sample application. Before going further, I want to mention that this entire session has been made as a blog. The link for the blog will be available in the description. This is my entire blog. You can, if you want, you can read the blog. It will be available in the description link. Okay. So let's go to creating our sample application. Command is like view, create, and our application name. I want to name it as JWT view. My application has been successfully created. Let's open the application in VS Code. cd jwt-view. Need to go to the path and code dot opens my Visual Studio Code. So here is my application. If you go to package.json, here you can observe view version is 3. Okay. So make sure to have a version 3 while creating the project. Now we require 3 main packages for this demo, like uh, router for configuring the routing, and another is vuejs for maintaining the state, and next is Axios for calling the REST APIs. So first let me install Vue router. Let's search like Vue router 3. On searching, you will see a GitHub link. Please go here. Vue router next. Vue router next. Here is the documentation if you want. And if you scroll down, you can find a command. So let's copy the view router command and let me open my terminal and pasting here. So now it will install view router library for me. So it is completed installing, and if you observe in our package, our view router is added. If you observe, view router is 4th version, right? This is the correct version which is compatible with the VueJS application 3. Okay. Next I need to install is vuex. Okay, let me search for vuex, and if you click here, go to 4th version. Here you can see the note. This is the doc vuex3 which works for v2. Okay, vuex3 works only for v2. If you are looking for the docs vuex4 which works for v3, either you can click here or you can click here. So Vue 4.x is the compatible version for the Vue 3. Okay. Now click on installation. You can find here npm command. Command is like npm install vuex next. So let's copy this command and paste in our terminal. So we have successfully installed our vuex store also. So if you go here, you can observe. Now let's install Axios. So let's search for Axios. It's a normal third-party library which supports for REST API calls. So Now here we can observe all our required packages like VueRouter, Vuex, and Axios has been installed. Now the first step is we need to create some components which will be rendered as a page to us based on the URL configuration. So let's go to our components folder, and here I am going to create two. First component is like home view, home.view. It is like a home page for my sample application. So this is the HTML part. Okay, now intelligence is coming for me. Okay, just some text like heading, nothing else. Okay, this is my home page. Now let me create another component for login. This is my this page will contain my login form. So let's create login form, right? So here we need to implement our login form. So for this sample, I am using Bootstrap for styling. So let's go to Bootstrap and docs. Here in the introduction page, just please copy the CSS href reference and now go to our public folder where our index.html is there. Click on index.html. Just above the closing head tag, please add our Bootstrap link. Okay, save it. Okay, now we have enabled Bootstrap. Let us design some simple form. Okay. Go to layouts, copy the form. Let's define form type and paste inside of it. Okay. Okay, this is my form. Okay, let's do some changes for it. Txt name. Make this type as password. Enter password. Okay, let's add a button. Type equal to button. Classes like BTN, BTN primary login. Okay, this is the basic HTML, and let's create some data here. For model binding, I want to create two properties like username, password. So let them bind with HTML using v-model username. So we have implemented model binding. Now just create a login callback method. Okay. Just I'm going to write console for now. Okay. Let's register with login button. So this is our basic form. We have created two input fields for username and password, and we have enabled model binding, like creating properties like username, and we have created a login callback method, like which will be executed on clicking the login button. So we are done with this page for now. And now next step is to let's add a simple nav menu so that we can click on we get a single page for getting single page experience. Okay. Let's check for nav bar. Go to app file. Just get rid of the existing code. Okay. Do this. Remove this. And remove this. Okay. Now copy once again and open into tag. So remove let's remove some unwanted data. So our final is like that. Just duplicate this li one more time. And for routing links, we need to use router link default view component. So for this, we need to use two property to configure the URL. This is my home. So I'm going to give as home page, and I can copy this class over here. Okay. Let me copy this router link and paste it here. And I am going to give as link login. And here change over to login. And okay, this is about navigation. And to render the content of the page based on the route URL, we need to configure router view component. In this area, the routed data content will be rendered. Okay, nothing but if you are invoking home page will be rendered in this component. If you are invoking login page will be rendered in this component. So that's all about configuring main case and everything. And now we need to enable routing to our application. For that, let me create a file like app router.js. So here let's define our routes. This variable takes array of our routes. So the routing configuration is like the properties where we configure our path, and to that path we need to configure component, means for that path which component to be rendered. Okay, so let's import our components. So those are the route constants. Okay, now let's create a route method. We need to export this config. So this is the method that comes from VueRouter. This will create a instance for our routing. So it is also like configurations only. One property is like history. We need to create web history. This will maintain our state of our application history, browser history. Another property is like routes. So here we need to assign our routes. So now we have our configurations with the routing. Now we need to register our routing into the Vue application instance. For that, go to main.js. Let's break down this code. And import our route file. So now we have integrated our routing into our application. Okay. So let's try to access our page now. Let's start our application. Now let's navigate to our application. Here it is not showing. Why? Sorry. Here we need to give route config. This is nothing but here we are exporting property, that one. See, now we are getting our home page. If you click on login page, we are getting our login page as well, right? So we have a sample application with this login form. Next step is, uh, since we are using JWT token for the authentication in normal in any application, to maintain the user authentication data like access token or refresh token, we should have to store in the either cookie or in the local storage. In our sample, we are going to use the local storage. But along with local storage, for retrieving and for fetching and serving the data or storing the user information more efficiently, we will use VX store management as well. So first, let's begin by creating a basic skeleton for our authentication state management. Create a folder like store. Okay. In that store, in this store, we are going to use the modules architecture. Means each functionality will have its own state management. Here, my authentication, I am going to maintain a separate state for entirely for authentication only. So for that, inside of it, let's create another folder like module. Inside of modules, let's create our state management file like auth.js. This will be my authentication state management file. So let's create a skeleton like okay. Let's for suppose in the state is nothing but uh, object where we will store all our data to be accessed into our component. So here I am going to create one property for authentication user, named it as auth data. In this object, I will store all the information like token, refresh token, username, user ID, and token expiration. Okay, these are the properties I am going to maintain in this state. So that's about the state object. Let's define getters. Getters are nothing but uh, methods that are going to access this data in the components. So if you want to access some data into our components, we need to use getters only. Okay, we cannot use state directly. Constants hyphen actions. So actions are nothing but they are like they will do asynchronous jobs like calling API and saving the data into the state. But saving data actions directly won't do. They internally call the mutation. So let's define mutations as well. Mutations are nothing but the carriers or state changers of our state management. So if you want to update or create or add or delete any information from our state, we should always use the mutations only. Okay, that's it. Now we need to export our entire module. So define state status actions. Okay, and I will define one more property like this defines when we are using any actions or getters or mutations of this auth state management, we should use namespace, because if we have multiple modules, store modules in our example, and we have same kind of method names, then store may get confused and execute all those methods when we invoke getters, actions, or mutations. So to avoid those kind of conflicts, it is always good practice to use the namespace. So I am enabled the namespace for my authentication module. Now next step is we need to register our auth module into the VueJS store. For that, go to store folder and create a new folder like new file like index.js. Let's create constant store and so if you observe this create store methods comes from the Vuex. This create store contains property like modules where we are going to all our child modules here. So my what we have created now, auth.js is our one module, right? I specified. So we need to register our auth module in here. So I will name my auth module as auth, and I am going to import here. So I have registered auth module, and this here you are seeing name as auth, right? For this module, this name should be used as a namespace while accessing any of the functionality from this auth module. So please remember that this is the important name for namespacing. So that's it. We have registered our child module into VX Store. Now we need to integrate our VX Store into our application, similar to what we did in router. So let's go to main.js. Sorry, I have not exported my main module. So here I'm exporting. Okay. And let's import store. So now we have successfully imported our store as well. So let's save this. And now first thing I want to mention is that for JWT authentication, we need a server endpoint, right? Either that server endpoint may be written in uh, Java, .NET, or any other node framework, right? So as a front-end developer, we may not require to know much about those endpoints. So what we will do is, initial step, we will use a mock JWT token for our authentication. Later, we are going to replace that mock JWT authentication with real API. So for that, let me get in error. Okay, not equal to semicolon. Okay. For that, I am going to copy a mock JWT authentication. So from my sample, I am taking the JWT token. So here we actually JWT token will come from API, right? Which is not, which is a asynchronous job. So all our asynchronous jobs will be taken care by actions. So in actions, let's create a method like login. It is asynchronous, right? Let's use async. Sorry, access token. So here my mocked JWT access token. So let's create refresh token. For now, let it be empty. Okay, this is our mocked data. Now, uh, so in actions, when our asynchronous job is completed, we need to store the response into mutations. So to call mutations, actions, the first parameters like the commit object with a commit property. This is like a command to trigger the mutation. So this need not to be passed while accessing this login method. This commit object automatically passed by the VX store indirectly. That means developer need not to bother to pass the commit object. And after that, if you want to send any kind of payload, so payload is nothing but username and password, right? So for that, we can create one another parameter like payload. This is the object which will contain username and password. For now, I am just console log it payload. When we replace this data with real-time example, then we post this payload to API. Okay. And next thing is we need to use commit. So now we can use commit to invoke the mutations. So in mutations, we don't have any method to update the user store. So entire logic now I want to implement is in this process, in the login method, we need to get the access token. Then that access token we will pass it to mutation, and mutation will update this entire auth data object. Okay. So let's begin mutations. So let's create a method like set auth data. Auth data. Okay. Auth data. Here, first parameter is state. State is nothing but this state only. Passing state to this method is automatically taken care by the UX store library only. And second parameter is our data, user input. So let's make as data. Okay. Now constant new auth data equal to okay. Now in data we have access token, data dot access token. In data we also have data dot refresh token. On this refresh token, this refresh token. So how this data is coming, we are thinking, right? We need to invoke this mutation. So to invoke the mutations from the action, I have said, right, we should use commit command. So for the commit command, first first input variable is mutation method name. So here my mutation function name is setAuthData. So I am passing first parameter. And second parameter is payload. Payload is nothing but here it will go. This state parameter automatically be passed by the library itself. So we no need to pass the state parameter explicitly. So here I am passing my uh, tokens data as data. So this data is this will be passed to this parameter in the setAuthData. Okay, state will be automatically taken care by the library. So once this entire object is prepared, we need to change our state. So using this state variable, we can access this auth data property. So now I am updating my auth data state like state dot auth data equal to new auth data. So I am changing the data. If you observe here, we are doing nothing with these properties like username, user ID, expiration, because this information is encrypted inside of the token. So we need to decrypt it and then those decrypted values assigned to here into our auth object. For that decryption of the access token, we need to have a helper method like let me create. Let's create a folder like shared. Okay. Inside of shared, I am going to create a file like JWT helper.js. So we need to implement a method here that can uh, decrypt and return a JavaScript object literal which contains the all information inside of the JWT token. For that, I am going to copy a method. So this is the method. You can search for this method in internet like JWT decryption method using JavaScript. So there is nothing to learn here. This is a fixed one. Any kind of JWT token can be decrypted using this method. You can find lot more different helper methods if you want. And if you want, you can also have libraries as well. But this is a small piece of code, right? So I am going to take the manually implemented code. So I am going to paste here. So this is my helper method. Let's go to my auth module, state module. Let's import that method. Okay, we imported our decryptor helper method. What I will do here, I am going to write some logic. So once our object is decrypted, we'll get data like. So this data might be different based on your JWT auth token. So I know what kind of object will be written by my auth token. So I am creating those properties only. If your auth token returning different kind of properties, you need to create your own properties. So for better understanding, I will also log here my properties. I already know, right, what my properties will be, so I'm assigning directly. So that is about the mutation, which will change the state of our auth data object. Now we have created action method, right, where we are fetching, where we have JWT authentication data, and using that JWT authentication data, we are decrypting and assigning all the values into our state object. So now we need to use this login method into our component so that whenever the user entered his password and login, will trigger this action. Okay. So now let's move to login.view page. So where is our JWT authentication logic? In the actions. So to access the actions into our view component, we need to use thread operator and map action. And I need to import map actions as well. Here import the map actions. Map actions. So these are the predefined methods like mappers, where we can access the actions from the our auth module state. So here we need to register our action. So my action is, what is my action in login? So I need to register here. For that I am going to create a new property like action login, and I am going to register login. So this is my nothing but my action here. Okay, I registered. So here we are seeing another property. Here is the namespace. We have to mention about the auth module. What is our auth module namespace? I have mentioned, right, the property here we have created for registration auth. This is the namespace my auth module. So let's copy that, give it here. Okay, that's it. And now what we can do, we need to invoke our action in the login method. For that I am going to do like this dot. Yeah, this action is asynchronous login action. So I'm going to do async. Wait. Here we can call like this, and we need to pass the payload. This payload will be passed to this payload parameter in the action. So what I need to pass, username and password. Username equal to this dot username, password equal to this dot password. Okay, and let's create one more state object where it will notify whether our authentication is success or failure. This will be more helpful when we have a real-time endpoint. When we replace this data with real-time authentication API, that we need to know, right, whether API is success or false. So for that, we will going to maintain one property like this maintaining status can be do it any of your way. This is not the mandatory way. Uh, so this is one way. What I want to say, this is one way to notify the from the state. So For notifying the state of our API, I'm going to create login API status. Okay. I have created new property in the state. So in the mutations, I have to create one method for to change the state of that login API state. Set login API status. Okay. Here first parameter will be always be state, which will be provided by library, and next is user passed data. So state dot let's copy the property. Go to data. So I want to invoke this mutation in my login action method as well. Action method can invoke n number of mutations. So commit and action mutation name is at state. For now, it value always will be success. Success. Okay. Now I want to create one more getter method where I want to fetch the our state object data into my login page. For that, I am going to create a getter like get login API status. Here input parameter state will be automatically passed by the library. Return state dot. I want to return this status. So that's it. Okay, now we need to read the status into our login view component. So to read the uh, getters, we have another mapper like map dot getters. If you observe, action methods are registered in methods property, but getters should be registered in computed properties because getters are nothing but the getters will return the state object. State object always changes, right, based on the actions like mutations. So to get always up to date or most latest data from the state, we need to register our getters in the computed properties because computed properties always watches for the changes. More similar way, I can simply say name. Naming convention is your own. So I have registered my getter here. I need to mention my namespace auth. So now after triggering the login action method, action method updating state, right? Status. So for that, I'm going to check for comma. So if it is success message, return success message. Let's open alert like login is success. Else failed to login success. So let's save and go to our application. Here we have getter status is not defined. Okay, we need to use this property. Once we registered our this any getter or action methods, we can call them using this only. Okay, let's see. Okay, let me enter some dummy data. In real time application, you should write some validations. This is sample demo, right? I'm skipping the form validation. So please make sure to write validations for your real time example. Let me open this. Okay, I forgot to mention one more, like along with updating state, we need to store our refresh token and access token in local storage as well. Because once application is closed, these changes will be lost, right? But if we store our refresh token and access token in local browser, it will stay. Means next time when user reopens the application, we will load the access token and refresh token directly from the local store browser instead of hitting the API. So let's store them here. So now we are saving our data to two places, like one is local storage browser and another is VX state management store. Okay, let's save, refresh again. So let me enter some fake data, fake login. See, I am getting login successful, and I want to show you two things. Go to console. See, here I am getting username and password are login to my console, right? Where it is login? Here console, if you check here. So this, from this we can understand this payload is our password data, and this commit is automatically taken by the VueJS3.0 library. Okay, and you can also observe one more object is like username is test, sub is 1, and expiration in seconds, milliseconds. Every some object is there. This is nothing but the decrypted object of our JWT token. Where it is there? In mutations, we have written console log, this one. So based on my decrypted JWT token, I have created the properties in the path data. If your JWT token returns some other kind of properties, then please write your own properties. Okay, this is my JWT token and these are my properties. And one more thing I want to show is, you go to application and local storage. Here you can see my access token is saved and my refresh token is empty. Later we will populate refresh token also. Now the problem is, I'm closing this application and I will open again. Not the problem. The reason to store in local browser storage. See, I still have my access token, but my state is changed. Means I lost the UX store state, but my access tokens are still alive in my browser. So later steps we will implement code to how to retrieve the access token, refresh token from the browser as well, so that we can re-establish our VX state with our user data. So I think video is becoming more bigger. I want to stop it here. In the next video, what I am going to explain is replacing our mock data with the JWT authentication. and also how to guard our routes based on the user authentication. Guarding is nothing but accessing the pages only few users, like authenticated users only. Like that, we will explain routing guards as well. Next is how to refresh the store when application closes and opens, how to retrieve the access token from the local storage and reassign them back to the our VX store. That will be explained in the next video. So I think this video has been delivered some useful information to you all. So if you like my video, please subscribe to my channel. I will see you soon with a new video. Until then, signing off.